Hey everybody, Koricon Nala here, and I'm going to be doing a review of 7G Rainbow Colony. Now this movie is directed by K. Selvaragaban and is starring Sonia Agarwal and Ravi Krishna as our main two characters, and Anitha and Kadir. Now this review, the reason I'm doing it is I was given a donation with the request to do this review. At first, I wasn't quite sure how I felt about getting a donation to do a review. However, that is one of the tiers for my Patreon. People that are on tier 2, those Patreons get to choose a movie for me to review. It's part of the perks. And this came from a Patreon that already had a review and wanted another one. And so they offered to just pay for the review. So I said yes, and their suggestion was, besides the polling that I already do, offer this to the public. And so I'm going to have information at the end of this review if you're interested in something like that. I have a list set up that you guys can see at any time, along with some other information, and I will go over all of that and how it would be done after this review. So if you're interested, stay tuned. So this movie is not what I expected. This is going to be a spoiler review because I'm going to go through a lot of stuff, and there is something at the end that will spoil it for you. If you don't want to be spoiled, check out the movie, come back and hang out with us and watch what I have to say. But I got my notes here from watching the movie. When I watch movies at home, I like to take notes while I'm doing it. I can't do that in a movie theater, so that's nice. But it starts out with our main character, Kadir, bored at work, just watching the time, waiting to get off so that he can go and go to this location. He gets his flowers, he sits down, this is very important to him, and he just waits. And then they do a 5 years earlier. Now what I like about this setup is we get a little bit of information about our character. It's not heavy in dialogue, it's more visual. And it kind of sets the tone of where our story is going to go, along with the tempo. So we know what our beats are going to be. We know the movie is going to be fairly slow and with the tempo, which is fine. That it's going to be a drama. So I'm set up for that. I'm ready. 5 years later, and now I'm curious of how we ended up here. So I do like that. A lot of times I'm not a big fan of the 1 year earlier, or 5 years earlier, especially in action movies where they give an action set piece and then they say 5 years earlier. I'm like, just start the movie and we'll get to the action piece when we get to it, because you're going to show it again anyway. But with this, it sets up the drama. It makes you curious of how your character got to this point. So I do like that they started the movie this way. It gave me a lot of information about what I'm supposed to expect and not expect in this film, because we're going to be going through this traveling or this story arc to find out what happens. So I do like that. When we get to the 5 years earlier, it's our main character at the age of 22, and he is a selfish young guy that causes a lot of trouble. He's got no motivation in life. He's irresponsible. And basically all he wants to do is hang out with his friends and have fun and get girls. And that's what leads us into our first song, is about the characters and wanting to get girls. And I thought it was an interesting song. I liked the song itself. I do like the fact that it was kind of a montage of them like getting ready for their nightlife. Also had some song and dance with them, but it was on location in the scene. So it was a good music section because it did give us characterization. We did get used to who these characters are and why they are the way they are. However, the one thing I had a problem with in this movie is that they were 22. So these kids were acting like they were 15, you know, or a young teenager, doing these silly, stupid things to each other and to the girl in question. Just, they were acting like young teenagers, not someone that was 22 years old. But it makes sense because later on in our second interval, they're supposed to be older. It's supposed to be 5 years later. However, I think it would have been better if they set the first interval when they were like 15, and then you set the second interval 10 years later to when they're 25. Because then it would have, it would make more sense on the first interval of why these kids are acting the way they are. Because a 22-year-old that acts like that, I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. I understand that a lot of 22-year-olds are not that responsible, but they're not going to act like teenagers. Not that many of them. There are a couple of people out there like that, but I think story-wise it would have worked better. However, I know why they did that. They did it so that they could keep the same actors. If you did the first interval when they're 15 and the second interval when they're 25, you're going to have 2 different actors playing every role. And that would get not only expensive, but really hard to match continuity and acting and characters and all that stuff. So I understand why they did 5 years and made them a little bit older as 22 to begin the movie. It's understandable from a filmmaking aspect, but from a story aspect, I would have wanted a 10-year gap and had them doing all the silly, stupid stuff to each other when they were teenagers, when it made more sense. So Kadir ends up falling in love with Anitha because he saw her and, you know, basically the rays of sun come from her, and he's enamored. He's totally in love with her at first sight and becomes really creepy and obsessed with this girl, following her around, you know, pretty much like a stalker. Now, they ended up at the second song, which was at a wedding, and I did like that. It was relevant. It was in the location. I thought it was a great song. I enjoyed it. I liked that section. That second song was good. So Anitha was in an arranged marriage, and her new fiance did not like the fact that Kadir was stalking her and trying to get her love and all this stuff. So he hired these goons to beat him up and take him out of the picture, dissuade him from following her anymore. But he goes a bit crazy and takes on all of them. But the experience did kind of humble him, and he talks to Anitha and tells her, convinces her that he's not in love with her anymore, that it's okay, let's just be friends. And she believes him, but is very cautious about it. I'm still on her side of the whole thing because he was very creepy, stalkerish, very much of like what a teenager would do. So I understand why she acted the way she did. But that sends us into the interval, and I really liked the way that they did the interval. Some intermissions for movies, they just put up a splash screen that says intermission or interval. And in this, they had like a fog on a window, and it was written interval, as if it was written on breath on a window. And I thought that was interesting. It was a part of the film. It looked really cool. And I just liked the aesthetic of it. So the first interval was just okay for me. I thought it was a bit slow, but the characters did get developed. I got to know who they were and what their situation was, and I wasn't bored or anything like that. I just didn't like the ages that they were acting. That, like I said, they should have been like 15. And he was a bit too creepy. I mean, the whole stalking thing, and it almost felt like a build-up for a horror movie where he was going to like kill her or something like that. So when the second interval started, I was a bit cautious, and they had the song montage, which was good. It pushed the story along. It showed the new tone, and I was like, okay, I think we're going to get something really good in this second half. And they had some more humor. So they had a bra sequence with Anitha and her mom, where she had bought her a bra, and Kadir was right outside the window because he snuck up to see her. And so she doesn't want to get undressed because Kadir is there. He's watching through the window. And they had this funny thing back and forth with her and the mom's just really confused of like why she wouldn't try it on. And I thought it was a cute, humorous little sequence. And then they had another scene that I thought was really funny, where she said, look, I will meet you at this time. It was like 5 in the morning. And so him and his friends are asleep on the rooftop, and he sets this alarm. He's not sure that the alarm's going to go off, and he keeps waking up his friend like every hour to ask him if the alarm was okay, or he sets the alarm off and wakes everybody up because he was just testing the alarm. And basically this poor kid can't get any sleep, and he has an interview at 7 in the morning. And then eventually Anitha comes up and she wakes him up because she thinks it's him, and he's like, no, he's over there. The poor kid. I mean, I thought that sequence was funny. It was entertaining. I did like that a lot. Kadir ended up wearing her down, and Anitha basically almost gave up and was like, okay, fine. Like, we can be together, but you have to prove to me that you're responsible, that you have a job, that you're a good person. Basically, he has to become the responsible good person that is worthy of marrying somebody like her. And so the next 4 years, he gets a job with, she helps him get the job with this motorcycle dealership. I think it was Honda, because he's a really good mechanic. He's not really good at anything else, but he's a good mechanic. And so she got him a job there, and he became more responsible. He's helping out the family. He's really growing as a person. Now, one of the things in the movie was the relationship between Kadir and his father. His father was always giving him crap about not being responsible, basically not proud of him, very disappointed in him all the time. And when he got the job at Honda, father was kind of cold about it, more like, well, it's about time, we'll see. Basically saying, I don't think you're going to keep the job. And so Kadir felt like nothing he did could please his father. But they had a really great scene that I loved of him kind of pretending to be asleep, more like he's laying in bed, and in the next room his parents are talking, and his father is basically saying, I am very proud of him, but if I just say that, then it takes away from his motivation, or like, what kind of a person am I if I just switch automatically like that? And so Kadir is crying in bed because he feels that his father is proud of him. It was a subtle scene, but I really liked it, and I think it was a turning point for our character, both Kadir and the father. So I really enjoyed that sequence. I thought it was well done and well placed. Now, they ended up having this awkward, humorous sequence with Anitha and Kadir alone in his friend's house. They're kind of watching TV or a movie or something, and he's trying to, like give her a kiss and stuff. She's saying no, and they end up running out of the front door right into her mother. And the look on her mother's face is like deadly, like, oh, how dare you. But there was, in the background music, as soon as they walk out, they have this boom with the background music right as you see the mother's face. And I thought it was perfectly timed and really showed her anger. I liked that. I really liked that they added that little, and it wasn't over the top or anything. It was just a boom. And she's like, "Urgh." I like that. After that encounter, the Anitha's mother returns all of the gifts that Kadir had given her to the family, and basically says, stay away from my daughter. They end up moving away. But what I thought was cool is one of the items that they were giving back was a DVD copy of Devdas, which I had reviewed earlier I think last month, because I saw it during a 15th year anniversary. They released it in theaters again, and I got to watch it and review it. So I was like, Devdas. I thought that was pretty cool. But the parents moved away with her and fixed the marriage with the fiance again, and everything is moving forward with that. But Kadir ends up going to the house and just sitting there and not really saying anything, just sitting there, which was kind of creepy, a little bit romantic, but mostly creepy. At this point, I'm going to get into some major spoilers, so even though I've been talking about the movie and there's spoilers in there, this is a major spoiler. If you haven't seen the movie, I suggest going and watching it first and then coming back for this, because it surprised me. And I don't get surprised very often. So that I really liked this. But they end up sneaking off Anitha sneaks off with Kadir. They have one night of kind of passion. They had one night together. Both of them are very awkward. They had an awkward song, but it was, this lovely moment that they got together. Kadir finally gets the girl, and they end up having an argument. And during this argument, they go outside. They're still arguing on the streets. They're still arguing on the sidewalk. She leaves the sidewalk to cross the street. She stops, turns to argue a little more, and then a bus hits her. Just bam! And it wasn't just that she got hit by the bus. She gets thrown over this car. She gets run over. The bloodied body is getting run over. I mean, it was violent, and they went all out and made sure that she was dead. She is just dead. In his grief, he tries to commit suicide. He jumps off a bridge and ends up falling on a moving truck and living. So he can't commit suicide, and it kind of jolts him to where he doesn't kill himself, but then we get back to the beginning of the movie of the 5 years earlier, where he is sitting on the bench with the flowers. It's late at night. His friend comes by. He says, "No, I'm going to wait." And then she appears, and she's like a vision of his. Not a ghost, but more of like he sees her and he's having a conversation with her, and that's how the movie ends. So he ends up going to the place that she died and talks with her. And that's why he wanted to leave work so badly, was to be able to get to her and talk to her. I thought that was an interesting twist. It made the movie a bit better, even though I thought the movie as a whole was a little bit slow. You could have cut out a lot of time in there. The payoff of the twist of her dying and the fact that he is waiting there with flowers so that he can talk to the vision of her, then the memory of her, was really interesting. I liked that twist a lot, and that boosted the movie a bit for me. So I'm going to give this movie a grade of a B. This movie felt like a really strong, great short story that was expanded into a movie length. Like, I could see this as a 20 or 30 minute short film that has that awesome twist and ending to it. But I think the story was maybe pulled a little too long for that payoff. I would have liked a shorter film. You could probably do it in, an hour and a half or 2 hours easily. But I still enjoyed it. I liked the movie. The ending really made it for me because I was not expecting her to die like that. I was expecting them to get married or something, something normal that you would see in just about every other movie, and they live happily ever after. But to have that kind of a twist was great, and I enjoyed that. But what do you guys think? Have you seen 7G Rainbow Colony? Oh, by the way, 7G is the apartment she lived in. I forgot to mention that, but that's where it came from. So did you enjoy 7G Rainbow Colony? Let me know your thoughts in the description below. Keep it civil down there. What did you like? What did you not like? Let me know your thoughts. Now, for those of you that are interested about how I got this reaction or this review request, was because of a donation. I was given a donation and asked me to review this movie. So I tried to figure out how I would end up giving this to the public, because they had suggested that I do that I offer this for people that don't want to wait for the polls. So I created a list, and I have a Google Drive link to it in the description below. You can check it out. The list will have the movies in order of when they came in, and it will also have the movies that win polls. So what I'm going to do is, if any requests donation requests come in, it's going to go in order no matter what the amount was. And the polls, whenever I do a review from the polls, that will go in just in the next order. So it will go to the bottom of the list, and then so on and so forth. I was struggling with the idea of giving a set amount, of saying like, you have to give this amount or I won't review the movie. It just sounds weird and like not part of my personality. So I'm not going to tell you how much you should donate for a review, but I will give a minimum, and the minimum's going to be $15. My reasoning for this is because it's fair to my Patreons that join at $5 a month and they get a review, and it's also would help me pay for the acquisition of the film that I'm supposed to review, whether it be renting it or buying it or whatever else. And it would also keep people that would take advantage of this whole thing and just put in 15 requests at $1 a piece. That would not be fair to the people that donate more, and so I'm going to put a minimum of 15, but I'm not going to tell you how much to donate. Donate whatever you want. But I have a link to it below. There's also questions in there. I've got questions for whether or not you want your name to be mentioned in the videos. Some people like to remain anonymous, like the person that asked for this review wants to be anonymous. Whether or not you want me to say the amount that you donated, and stuff like that. So if you do decide to want to put in a donation for a movie review, please answer those questions so that I know what to include in the review itself. I do not want to state anyone's name that did not want their name stated, and so on. So links to that in the description. Check that out if you wish. Even if you just want to know when the movies that win the polls, when they're going to come up, you will see in order of which review is going to come next. Now, I do have to state, new movies take precedence. I'm going to be reviewing new movies first because I want the channel to be up to date. I want it to be relevant. So when I see a movie in the theater, I'm going to be reviewing that first always. I also have 2 jobs, so my time is not great. It's not like something where I can do 3 movies a week. I'm going to be doing them when I can, and as long as it doesn't interfere with my new movies. So please be patient with these reviews. I don't know if I'm going to get any requests or how many I will be getting. But the next one is the poll winner, the last poll winner, which was Dawn. So that's going to be the next older movie review that I end up getting to. And again, that list is down there. You can check that out. If you're on VidMe, upvote this, give me a follow, and share it around. If you're on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, and I will see you on the next video.